It is a quiet day in Halcyona. As you've just finished your daily round of tasks around the farm, you sit down on your porch and watch as the sun sets over the mountains. A beautiful sight, only made more beautiful by your wife sitting next to you. You talk about how the groundlings didn't cause much trouble today, and you hope things will be quiet tomorrow as well. While the work on the farm is rough, you enjoy the peace of mind more than anything the big city could offer you. After you retire to your bedchamber, your tired body doesn't take long to fall asleep. The next morning, you're woken at the early hours of dawn by the sound of the rooster. As you turn around, however, you notice the other side of the bed is empty. Has your wife gotten up before you? That would be a first. You put on some pants and look around the house, but she's nowhere to be found. Hoping to find perhaps a note from her, you check out the desk. No note, but you see something unexpected. According to the calendar on the desk, 2 days have passed. Did you really sleep for more than 24 hours? Puzzled, you walk outside. You talk to the other farmers in the area, but to your disappointment, they only talk to you about their daily tasks. None of them seem to know anything about your wife. What's worse, they don't even seem to remember that you had a wife at all. They don't react at all to your questions about what may have happened yesterday, and whether you were asleep for the whole day. None of this makes sense. If you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. You remember this ancient proverb your father once taught you. So, you head out onto the road and start walking towards the nearest city. This is the first time you've walked past the perimeters of your farm, and the feeling of being in unfamiliar territory is deeply unsettling even though you've only walked a few meters away from the farm. You feel the farmhouse calling to you, as if that's where you belong and nowhere else. But you resist the urge to head back. You see many adventurers narrowly passing you on various mounts and motorized vehicles. It's like they don't even try to be mindful of others on the road. You shake your head as you imagine what would happen if one were to hit you. It is at that moment that you lock eyes with one of the adventurers. The adventurer stops right in front of you, and then walks slowly around you without breaking eye contact. You're stunned in confusion. This has never happened before. But despite not breaking eye contact, the adventurer is silent and doesn't say a word. It feels like ages with this adventurer just walking around you, seemingly checking you out. Then, a portal appears, which slowly reveals a large four-wheel vehicle, adorned with metal pipes and valves. Before you have the chance to back away, the adventurer has already hopped into the vehicle and is maneuvering it towards you. With nothing to defend yourself, you brace yourself for impact. You blink a few times, but are miraculously unscathed. Instead, you are now standing on top of the vehicle, with the adventurer still driving it around. You are baffled but don't quite appreciate being kidnapped like this. You decide to try and kick the adventurer off the wheel. By some miracle, you actually succeed, and the adventurer falls off. When you look back, you see the adventurer running after you, absolutely furious. You're not sure what possessed you, since this person is clearly equipped with high-grade weapons and armor. You've never driven a vehicle like this before, but now you're in control. You press some of the buttons on the dashboard, and the vehicle suddenly jumps up from the ground, rotating fully upside down. You scream and continue pressing buttons, until the vehicle lands again with all four wheels on the ground. As you lean outside to throw up, the adventurer catches up with you, now glowing red and brandishing their weapon. Before you have the chance to start driving again, you see the name tag of the adventurer turn purple, and their weapon flying towards you. This is it, you think to yourself. How foolish I was to even leave my farm in the first place. I should have just stayed with my chickens and grieved my wife in silence. To your surprise, the weapon flies straight through you and hits the interior of the vehicle. Rather than question how you just survived an axe to the face, you take this moment to floor it and manage to shake off the crazed adventurer. Full speed ahead, you drive towards Marianapole. The vehicle is surprisingly fast, and you get there in no time at all. As you barrel through the large gates, You realize you don't quite know how to make the car stop. You start to panic, and in an attempt to avoid mowing down civilians and adventurers alike, you swerve from left to right. With little luck, however, as the vehicle shows no signs of slowing down despite taking down several streetlight poles. Just as you arrive at the big central square, you remember the buttons you pressed last time. You may not know how to stop, but as you leap into the air, you at least may be able to avoid crashing into the dozens of adventurers in front of you. You wake up, face down into the chilling water. With a gasp, you jolt up and find yourself in the fountain on the central plaza. Next to you, the car is still running, but without the wheels touching the ground. It luckily isn't going anywhere. You climb out of the fountain and make your way into a nearby building. With soaked clothes and a sore back, you plop yourself down on the first chair you see. You take off your shoes and start to squeeze the water out of your socks, when a guard runs up to you. "Hold it right there, criminal scum." The guard yells accusingly. You look around, as you don't recall taking off your shoes being a crime in this city. "These chairs are reserved for the heroes of our faction, and no other citizen or adventurer is allowed to sit here. Remove yourself immediately." You are appalled at the accusation and assumption that you are not fit to sit in this chair, and slap the guard in the face. For just a second, you thought this could have been a good strategy, but you are swiftly proven wrong as you drop to the floor. The next thing you remember, you're in a completely unfamiliar and dark place. Stone walls surround you, with metal bars barring the only way out. Outside of your jail cell, you see the guard you just slapped. They throw you a dirty look and yell to the other guard, "Make sure that one stays in here for 72 hours. Before stomping off, you reconsider that your choice of action earlier may not have been the best, but 3 days jail time seems quite excessive to you. You need to find out what happened to your wife and whether she's safe. "Please, I have a wife," you utter, but the remaining guards don't respond to you at all. You slink along the walls of the cell and push against every rock and brick, hoping to find any weak spots in the wall. After about 20 minutes of grinding your body against the wall in every position you can think of, you suddenly feel your hand glide through the stone. This wasn't quite what you expected, as it wasn't a loose stone you found, but rather your hand is visibly going through the stone that is in place. You're not sure what to feel about this, but the desire to find your wife empowers you to take your chances. You're pretty small after all, and maybe this is your way out. With all your might, you squeeze your body into the gap, and suddenly you find yourself on the other side of the wall. Avoiding the guards, you head back to the central plaza, where most of the adventurers in town are gathered. You shout, "Has anyone seen my wife?" Immediately, several adventurers respond.
Look at this guy pretending he dates LOL.
No, but I saw your mom last night.
What is this? Another bugged quest.
Oh man, I picked up a quest last week and couldn't complete it now cause the NPC is no longer there.
Yeah, I think Merge bugged some things out.
I'm missing a bunch of my items too.
Just send in a ticket.
You don't quite understand everything the adventurers are saying, but you get the gist that some things have been off ever since you woke up. And not just for you. You ask anyone else slept for more than 24 hours yesterday.
Yeah, I had nothing to do all day. It was so boring.
I played some gotchas during downtime.
Oh, gotcha. MOBAs are better.
I touched grass during main. You should try it.
Wish I could have just slept through it.
Your eyes glaze over as you only understand half of the words they are saying. You wonder if adventurers really are from another world, or if you're just too old to understand the slang of the youth these days. Time to get out of here. It seems that your wife wasn't to be found anywhere in Mariannable, and you feel like the best course of action now is to keep moving. As you're wondering where to head next, you spot a portal left behind by one of the adventurers. You've never used one of these before, but what's the worst that could happen? You take a leap of faith and jump through the portal. After a dizzying experience, you find yourself in a warm climate area, surrounded by tall rock formations, and a large tree in the middle of it. You seem to have arrived at a settlement, with several merchants and a big group of adventurers near you. The adventurers seem to be preparing for something. You eye one of the dragon mounts of the adventurers. It's always been your dream to ride one of those. Surely, Noon will notice. You think to yourself, as you shuffle towards it and sneakily hop on. The dragon gives you a dirty look, but doesn't throw you off. You caress its scales and already imagine yourself soaring through the sky. Your musing is cut short though, as the group of adventurers suddenly spur into action and all start moving out. The owner of the dragon hops on as well, and immediately takes off, without even noticing that you're still on there. You muffle your own scream, as you don't want to alert them and make things worse. The group rides out in an impressively coordinated manner, and you arrive at a large open field, with trees dotting the landscape. Sadly, you have only a short moment to enjoy the breeze against your face while you're still on this majestic creature, as you see a large group of her onion adventurers heading your way from across the field. The dragon is recalled, and you fall to the ground, at risk of getting stomped by the horde of adventurers. Just in time, you manage to jump into a bush and hide, to not get caught in the stampede. Peeking out of the bush, you see that the two groups of adventurers have now engaged into combat with each other. You're overwhelmed by the sound of metal clashing against each other, arrows flying everywhere, and lightning crackling from above. Just as a stray blast of fire sets your bush ablaze, you realize it's no longer safe to hide here. You jump out of the bush and make a slick barrel roll, but don't get very far with your tiny legs before a large blue Snowlian specter charges towards you out of thin air and blasts you back, along with everyone else in your vicinity. The glowing orb catches your eyes, and you get up to study it more closely. It is beautiful, amazing, breathtaking. You wish you had an orb like this at home. You could spend hours just staring at it. The orb feels like your soulmate. You couldn't care less about what else is happening around you. The orb is all that matters. Breathing heavily, and with shaking hands, you get closer and closer to the orb. You are almost close enough to touch it. Can you really touch such a divine object? Your sweaty hands hover over the orb, inching ever closer. You can no longer contain yourself, and grab the orb with both hands. Electricity crackles. For a moment, you taste divinity and feel the enlightenment of the gods. But immediately after, a sharp sting of pain goes through your head, and you could have sworn that for a fraction of a second, the land turned red and the sky black. You look around you, but the field suddenly feels awfully quiet. You don't see any adventurers anymore, nor monsters. Where did they go? Confused, you take a few steps backwards. Unfortunately, you trip over a small rock behind you, and the orb slips out of your hands, flying high into the sky. Nuo Wu, you yell, as you watch the orb fall back down in slow motion. Any attempts to catch the orb are futile, as your hands are far too sweaty to get a solid grip. The orb hits the ground and shatters in a million pieces, just like your hopes and dreams. But then, a strange thing unfolds before your eyes. The sand on the ground starts to float upwards and reveals a bright blue hole in the ground, exactly where the orb had landed. Before you can get back up, the hole starts to expand at an alarming rate, and soon reaches you as the ground below you disappears. Suddenly, you find yourself falling through the ground, into the bright blue abyss. You flail your limbs in an attempt to hold on to anything you can, but there is only a vast expanse of nothingness, until you suddenly land into a dark body of water. You gasp and inhale a mouthful of water. You try to swim back to the surface, but only manage to sink further into the depths. Your limbs feel tired, and you feel your stamina slowly slip away. If up doesn't work, maybe downwards will work better. You start swimming downwards, furiously kicking your legs to gain speed in your descent. Things seem hopeless for a while, as your surroundings turn darker and darker. But then you spot something bright in the deep distance. You swim towards it, and as you get closer, you see that the brightness seems to be coming from some sort of underwater island bubble. With your last breath, you manage to get close enough to touch the bubble and enter through it. You feel solid ground again. Coughing violently, you expel the water from your lungs and gasp for air. It takes you a moment to get your bearings, but you've somehow managed to survive. Underneath your feet, a grid-like texture extends over the entire area, and in one of the grid squares, red letters spell out the words Dev Island. Looking around, you see all sorts of strange objects and figures, none of which seem to really belong together in one place. You start walking past big pink bunnies, large pumpkins, snails, and floating lanterns. On the floor, various coins are scattered in many different colors. You pick one up, and strangely see just the text "Do Not Translate" written on them. You continue walking past the festival slot machines, and pass through various buildings that seem to be missing part of their walls, roof, or windows. It is at that moment that you spot something familiar. Is that your wife? You blink a few times in disbelief, but you are not mistaken. Elated, you immediately run towards her and give her the biggest hug you've ever given in your life. "Honey, I've missed you so much," you say with tears in your eyes.
"I've missed you so much as well. I thought I lost you forever."
She responds tearfully. "Do you know where we are?" You ask, but she shakes her head in disappointment. Together, you look around in the hopes of finding a way home, but the only portals you see have been deactivated. You're no scientist, and definitely no Daru, so you have no idea how to reactivate these. You may actually be stuck here on this island now. Since you may be stuck on the island for a while, you think about how to procure food for you and your wife. You still have a pouch of apple tree seeds on you, and decide to plant them all over. It takes you most of a day, but you manage to cover every inch of available land. You wipe the sweat from your brow and look over the newly sprouting forest proudly, when you spot a figure walking behind the trees. With newfound hope, you run over to them. Strangely, they are wearing an office suit. Once you get closer to them, they look up at you with tired, baggy eyes.
Can I help you?"
They ask, with a despondent voice. "Do you know how we can get out of here? My wife and I. We just want to go home," you plead. The person in front of you squints at you, and with a pensive expression, moves their hand upwards with a swift motion. A semi-translucent window appears in front of them, and they start moving their fingers rapidly on the bottom of the window. Several lines of mirrored text appear on the window, while the person starts to murmur,
"Debug. Invalid object. NPC location. Coordinates 9,515, 10,322, 205. Got it.
They cheer.
Sending you back to your location now."
Before you can respond, they make a final swift motion with their hand, and your surroundings start to warp and distort. When you open your eyes again, you find yourself back in your familiar old farm, together with your wife. You grab her hand firmly and smile at her. Never again will you let yourselves be separated. Over the next few days, you notice a large amount of adventurers spending time near your house, trying to peek in and catch a glimpse of you. Sometimes, you overhear them chatting to each other.
"Look, that's the NPC that caused the mass DC in Prairie."
My entire guild crashed. Totally would have won otherwise.
"I for one accept our new farmer overlord, he who decides our fate."
When are we getting compensation?
You're not a big fan of all the attention, and it's been difficult to get all of your daily tasks around the farm done with so many people around. You're also worried that strange things will happen again if you interact with them. So you try to avoid going out of the house unless most of them are gone, or have stopped moving for a while. A few days pass, and one morning when you wake up, something feels different. You get up, and when you look in the mirror, you suddenly see something new floating above your head. You look up in surprise, and see the words Farmer Clarence. It dawns on you that for all these years, no one had called you by name, but without a doubt, you know that your name is Clarence, and always has been. You feel refreshed, and step outside as a new man. Adventurers still pass by occasionally, but you no longer fear to interact with them. In fact, whenever you need help on the farm, you're now able to sprout a new symbol above your head and officially ask them for help. This has made things a lot easier for you. Life is good in Halcyona once again, and you watch the sun set on your porch next to your beautiful wife.